Hello, my lovely friends, and welcome to another Coffee Chattin' with Evelyn episode where I sit down and just have a nice casual one-on-one with you over some coffee and share some learnings and experiences that I've had in the past about a specific topic. And today's topic is going to be about PM interview questions and answers that I've given in the past. So for those of you guys who do not know, I am currently a product manager working in tech in the Bay Area, and in the past, about 2 years ago now, I think, I was interviewing for full-time roles, and I interviewed at places like Uber, Facebook, Salesforce, Dropbox, and tons of other companies. So I have built up quite a repertoire of interview questions that I've gotten in the past before. Every time after an interview, I would just jump on my laptop and quickly jot down the questions because I figured, one day it would be helpful to pass on to someone else, and in this case, to pass on to all of you guys who are wondering what those PM interview questions are like. So these are real questions that I've gotten. I'm not going to say specifically what company gave them to me, and for some of them, I will be changing sort of like the company that was involved in the question itself, just because I know some interviews I was signing NDAs for, and I do not want to get in trouble. And as always, take what I say in these coffee chats with a grain of salt. It's simply just me sharing my thoughts and learnings. Specifically with PM interview questions, there's just no right answer. So I'm sharing my answers just to kind of show you how I have gone through these questions in the past. But it's not like I got hired at all these companies, so a lot of these answers could honestly just be not the best answers. I just wanted to share with you guys how I sort of thought through these and what exactly those questions were. So I'm gonna go through 5 questions. I'm honestly not sure how long it'll take me to get through these, and I don't want this video to go too long. So hopefully 5 is a good amount of questions and answers. And like I said before, I did a lot of interviewing, so I have tons more questions that I was asked. So if you'd like, hit that subscribe button down below and stay tuned for a future coffee chat episode where I go through more questions. Okay, let's go ahead and dive into this. And I'm looking at my laptop here because that is where I have all my questions jotted down and notes to refer back to. So the first question that I got was, how would you make iPhones better for people? And I remember asking to clarify, trying to scope out this question. Do you mean the product as a whole? Like, is there a specific area you want me to focus in on? And the interviewer was kind of like,
just in general, you decide.
So I started thinking into, okay, well, how does the iPhone help people today? And I asked for a few minutes to brainstorm, and I started jotting down on a notepad sort of how the iPhone helps people today. And mainly I was thinking about, communication, transportation, but in my mind, these are very much app specific things. And so I was trying to dig deeper into, okay, well, what about the phone itself? How could the software that helps you get to all these apps be better for you? And I followed that train of thought down to these pain points people have around the device itself, right? Your mental and physical well-being. I feel like I couldn't really tie to a specific app itself, but rather just smartphones in general. And yes, I feel like another app could help here, but the main device could probably do a lot better. The software of the main device could probably do a lot better because they know about your activity across all the apps and whatnot. So then I started thinking deeper into like, okay, well, what brings you to your phone in the first place? And some of the things that came first to mind were, notifications and boredom, wanting to check out news and things like that. So I started thinking about, okay, well, how could we make this better for you? Perhaps better management of notifications, easier management of notifications. For the boredom case, potentially greater transparency in usage of your device itself, so you truly feel like you're in control here. And then just sort of my suggestion was, okay, maybe there could also be greater, physical health aids and suggestions that are personalized to you and your phone activity, because at this point, your phone probably knows when you wake up, when you go to sleep, when you have a break in your day and whatnot, and those are signals that I felt the software could actually pick up on, and the core device could provide some input and help back to you on. So that is how I went about answering that question. The second question I've been asked before was, tell me about a time you dealt with multiple approaching deliverables. And honestly, I don't remember the exact situation I gave. These interview questions were like from 2 years ago now. But I do remember sort of the key points that I wanted to highlight. And some of them were things like making sure that the deadlines for these deliverables were very clear across all the stakeholders. And then for people who are involved in many of the deliverables, understanding how those deliverables should be prioritized. Because at the end of the day, as much as we want to always hit those deliverable dates, sometimes if there are too many competing deliverables, you just need to find a way to prioritize. And then I talked a little bit about thinking through dependencies on any sort of action items that you need from other people involved in the deliverable, or any sort of reviews that are needed as well, either that be external or the individual people working on the deliverables themselves. And in general, at the end of the day, just thinking through the entire process, all the steps to get to having this final deliverable. What are all those steps? What can you get started ahead of time on? What likely needs more buffer time on, sort of the more unexpected things that may come up, things that you don't really have control over is how I would see it, right? Because I have control over, potentially how the PowerPoint is drafted, but if I'm going to ask someone else to review it, I need to put in some additional buffer time there to make sure that that dependency on whoever it is to review it, they are accounted for, and I make sure to build them into my timeline. So that is how I answered that question. Okay, question number 3 is, what are metrics you would look at to measure the success of an online marketplace? And for this question, once again, I was sort of digging back to understand the scope here. I was kind of asking, are we talking about the product as a whole or a specific feature? The answer to that was
the product as a whole.
So I asked further, is there a specific intent with this online marketplace? Are we trying to sell specific items? Is it more like social networking based? Is it wanting to help small businesses? What is sort of the purpose of this online marketplace? And the interviewer kind of let me have full reign here. So I took it pretty general. My self-defined intent here was simply connect people to buy and sell products. We're not really focusing on monetizing this process yet. Simply just having a trusty way to connect people to buy and sell products. So from this self-defined intent, I started brainstorming through the end user perspective. So from a seller perspective, the key user jobs that I would have there are, listing products, connecting with the buyer themselves, and there's of course trust built into that process there that I'd be expecting as well, and selling the product, whether that be shipping in person, whatever. And then from the buyer perspective, being able to find products that I want is incredibly important. And then of course communicating with the seller and then exchanging of goods after. So from these sort of thoughts around like the key user jobs, I then dug further into, okay, what are the high level metrics then I can look at for this online marketplace? And the first few things that came to mind for me are, okay, at the end of the day, this online marketplace, you need a strong user base. You need people who are on this marketplace, right? So looking at just your active users there, but then more importantly, in order for a marketplace to be successful, you need listings. You need a reason why people are coming. So for the buyers to list and for the sellers to look at listings. So listings was definitely one of the high level metrics that I wanted to point out. And then the next high level metric was active and passive engagement on the listings themselves. So views of the listings, comments on the listings, any sort of engagement with the listings themselves, I saw as sort of like this high level metric that you'd likely want to drive long term. That's pretty hard to individually drive through specific features, I would say. And from there, once again, my self-defined intent of this marketplace being to connect buyers and sellers. And really the goal here is to just sell as quickly as possible. I wanted to call out sort of measuring the efficiency of the marketplace as a metric that I'd want to track. So some of the things I brought up were how quickly active engagement occurs on the listings, because views are great, but if there's active engagement, outreach to the, whoever's selling or the seller, trying to bump their posts, things like that, any sort of active engagement happening on the listings themselves, I felt was incredibly important to track, and likely through feature improvements or new features could be easily bumped up as well. And then something else that I brought up that I remember the interviewer saying was interesting that I called out, which I'm not actually too sure why, because I feel like this feature is widely available, but the ability to mark something as sold in order to truly track, how efficient your marketplace is, whether that selling, that follow-up is actually being done, and just how quickly that turnaround is from something being listed to being marked as sold. So yeah, that's how I thought through that one. Once again, a lot of the ways that I answer these questions were very collaborative and just sort of casual with the interviewer, which I kind of loved. I like the fact that it felt like we were just sitting in a meeting room and sort of brainstorming together, but it really depends on your interviewer. All right, question number 4. You noticed a drop in signups for a social networking site. What would you do? So the first thing I wanted to bring up was sort of like the broader quick checks we could do. I was asking questions like, okay, is this like a specific time of year? Is this expected at all? Or were there marketing changes? Are there any sort of logging bugs? Any sort of external causes that we may be able to quickly call out and sort of pinpoint as the reasons why? And the interviewer said,
Nope, that is not why.
So I dug a little further and I was trying to figure out, okay, well, where are we seeing these signups decrease, right? Could we dig into the actual steps of the sign-in flow? And he said, okay. And so I was asking back to him, are we seeing drop-offs at any of the sign-up steps? And he said,
yes, we are.
And I took that and I ran with it. I was like, tell me more. Tell me where this drop-off is happening, what step, what exactly, like what could we do to improve this step here? And once again, it's been 2 years. I don't remember the exact step that was happening. I feel like it had to do with profile picture or something like that. And so I was just digging more into that and sort of providing, some suggestions of like, do we need the profile picture? Are we making it easier for users across all devices to be able to do this upload? Was there anything that changed with this specific sign up step in the past before that would affect the rate at which people are getting through this step? And don't remember the specific outcome of the question or of the answer, but that's how that question went. And number 5, my last question I'm going to go through here is, tell me about a time that you used data. So, and maybe I'll do another video on all my past internships, but prior to my software engineering and product management internships, I actually was a data analyst intern at Kaiser Permanente with the most amazing girl boss. I love her so much, and just the best mentor manager ever. Anyways, this data analyst internship, I was very much kind of doing like this step-by-step, going through Excel workbooks. The higher level project was essentially seeing how compensation affects sales, measuring the efficiency of like bonuses and the reward system, and seeing how that affected the actual, sales and growth of the salespeople. So I was going through Excel workbook after Excel workbook and manually pulling out these visualizations, cleaning up these workbooks, and I explained that to my interviewer, and I was kind of like, that was what my job was, is to use data in order to pull out these takeaways at the end of the day. And the very end goal was this presentation, which with like a high level overview of how this compensation and reward system was working year after year. And what actually ended up happening is I managed to finish up these visualizations and sort of finished up the core project early on. And I ended up asking my manager if I could figure out a way to automate all this, because it did feel pretty tedious going in workbook after workbook to do this work when I felt like you could probably automate this. So I first dug into using Visual Basic for applications, VBA. It's like the programming language that you can use with Excel. And so I was using that, but that wasn't working because I had a bunch of different Excel workbooks that I needed to work through. So I ended up pulling together a Jupyter notebook, pulling in a bunch of different Python libraries, and making it so that I could import Excel workbooks, have a bunch of scripts that essentially work through those workbooks for me, and then just exported sort of these takeaways and these visualizations that I needed to help me figure out if these comp systems were working. So that is how I sort of answered that question. It became like how I was using data to how I was able to make my data analyst role more efficient, I guess. Honestly, not exactly sure what answer they were hoping for there, but that's how I answered that question. Oh no, my camera battery's dying. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and cut off this coffee chat here. Cheers. I hope you enjoyed. I hope this helped somewhat. Like this video if it helped you out. Okay, so my camera battery did indeed die. Just wanted to quickly say, remember, all these interview questions and answers, very much just my experience. Everyone answers these questions differently, but hopefully you found this helpful. If you did, please like and subscribe down below. And if you guys want to share what PM interview questions you've heard before, or how you would answer these questions, go ahead and leave them down in the comments below. I'm sure that'd be very helpful to others as well. And yeah, that's all. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.